All right, it is officially the noon o'clock hour here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. If a few more people roll in, that is totally fine. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our very first Money Counts webinar of the semester. Today, we'll talk all things paying for college. We'll thoroughly explore different funding sources and chat about some must-knows for each funding source that's out there. We'll talk about the optimal order of operations to pay for college, and we'll finish by discussing a few different ways you might save on education expenses and chat about making an overall financial plan to pay for college. Before we get started, I'll just take a minute to introduce myself and Sarah here. My name is Allie Smith. I'm a specialist here with Penn State's Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center. I head the one-on-one financial coaching program, and I host this regular webinar series. Also joining us, we have Sarah Metzger. She is also a specialist at the center. She'll be manning our chat today, so if you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can throw them in the chat, or you can use the Q&A feature. Any questions that Sarah can't get to throughout the webinar, we'll discuss at the end. I do have the SMEAL Ethical Leadership QR code if you're here for that. I will throw that up on the screen at the end. As we get started, I would love to kind of get a feel for who's in our audience today. So I do have a poll to share. It has 4 questions. First question is, what is your affiliation with Penn State? We would love to know who's in our audience, where you're coming from. We are also interested to know which aspect of paying for college you are most interested in learning about, along with what worries you the most about paying for college. And the very last poll in the webinar is out of curiosity for me, it's current students. If you have an awareness currently of how college is being paid for, and if you're taking out loans, if you know how much you're taking out and who they're from. So I'll give you, since we have 4 questions here, I'll give you maybe an extra minute to go through this and fill it out. So far, it looks like we have mostly undergraduate students, some staff and faculty, and at least one Penn State parent. Welcome. It looks like a lot of us are interested in the financial aid process and the FAFSA. Worries include accumulating student debt, which is totally understandable. And let me share this out here so we can see. Rest assured, these answers are all anonymous. You can take a look at who's in the audience with you today. We have a good split of knowing how college is being paid for and having a good idea of how much student debt you've got out there, and having honestly no idea. And for those of you who aren't sure, I am really glad that you joined today's webinar to get an idea of all these things. Knowledge is power is what I always say. Sorry, I thought I shared the results. I think I'm just now sharing the results if you want to take a look over those. I just want to start by reiterating that as a student, it is so important for you to understand how you're paying for college. If a parent has kind of taken on this job of getting your semesterly bill taken care of, and you're not quite sure how it happens each semester, the very first thing you need to do when it comes to paying for college, today's webinar, is have a good conversation with your parent or whoever it is that's kind of taking care of this for you to get an understanding of how college is being paid for. Are you using loans? If so, how much are you taking out each semester? Is your family kind of stepping in and helping you by paying out of pocket? If so, that's amazing. Make sure you thank them. Um, and we're going to talk about these things. So if you're someone who, again, has no idea, I am so glad you joined today's webinar. That's what we're going to spend the next hour exploring and talking about. And if you have further questions, just know we are here to help you have these conversations and to promote financial conversation within your family. Our goal and our mission here at the center, let me get rid of that. Our goal and our mission here at the center is to empower you as students with the knowledge that you need to take control of your finances. And we aim to do that through a variety of different programs. All of the programs that you see on the screen here, we offer to Penn State students at no additional cost. We've got the one-on-one financial coaching appointments I mentioned earlier. I do head those in the center. So if you decide after today's webinar that you might need a little additional help, you might meet with me. We also have a few other folks at the center who offer the one-on-one appointments as well. Those are scheduled through Starfish. We have group presentations and webinars. For presentations, we go into a lot of classrooms during the semester and talk about different financial literacy topics. If you're a student who heads a student org, you can also schedule presentations for your student organization. We've got self-study modules. Those are offered via Canvas, and those are open to the public, so you don't have to be Penn State affiliated to get access to those modules. Our mentoring program aims to connect current students with Penn State alumni and Penn State affiliated mentors. Our newest offering are our financial foundations workshops. This is a hands-on experience where instead of just learning about your budget or your credit score, you'll actually take the time through this program to build your own budget and pull your own credit report and learn about that. So it's very hands-on. We do have some openings for our financial foundation workshops in the fall. And if that's something you're interested in, or honestly, if you're interested in any of these services, at the end, I've got some QR codes with links to sign up for all of these things. So stay tuned for that if it sounds like any of these things sound like something that is of interest to you. So we can't really talk about paying for college without exploring the why behind attending college. For those of us who are in college, I'm sure we've heard this 1,000 times by now, but higher education really is an investment in yourself, in your future self, right? Research shows that folks with college degrees typically experience increased job security and satisfaction, the greater ability to pursue their passions and interests, typically have access to a larger network, and tend to experience increased health outcomes. There are a few reasons that higher education correlates with better health. Those with college degrees typically have greater access to health insurance, which can lead to more preventative screenings and better, more frequent care. The higher salaries that often accompany college degrees, which we'll look at on the next slide, can also lead to safer housing and higher access to healthy foods. So college graduates have more earning potential on average than people who only have a high school diploma. If you look at this chart, it shows the average lifetime earnings of folks with less than a high school education all the way up to a professional degree. So think like a law degree. And if you kind of take a look at this, you can see the huge gap in lifetime earnings of those with just a high school diploma to a bachelor's degree. And I also want to point out, look at the gap between some college or no degree to a bachelor's degree. That's a pretty big jump over time. So just let this chart be a motivator to actually, if you're in college, commit to getting that degree and graduating. Getting a good paying job is one of the top reasons why most people do go to college. A college degree tends to offer not only long-term job stability, but also success outside the workplace. With more and more occupations requiring advanced degrees these days, a college degree can be critical to success in today's workforce. Generally, you can be expected to be paid more with a college degree, but that's definitely not always the case. It's important to treat college like an investment, and with any investment you make, it's important to put the research in upfront to make sure it is a good, sound investment. So, with that being said, I would encourage everyone to think about their career goals and look into the education required to pursue that career, along with estimates of starting salaries in the field that you're hoping to go into. We'll talk a little bit more about this at the end and where you can find some of that data. But I will say, this is an essential step to figuring out your college financial plan, is thinking about what you want to do in the future and what are the associated starting salaries of your career goal. So, college is a large investment to say the least, and it should be an investment that you are looking for some future return on. So, first things first, we have to figure out how much it will cost. The price that you will pay for college will depend on a number of factors. It'll depend on if you're paying in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition, if you're living on campus or off campus, or maybe you're living at home and pursuing an online degree through World Campus. It'll also depend on if you're attending University Park or a Commonwealth campus, and even down to where you're at in your degree program. Your lower division credits are going to be a little bit cheaper than your upper division credits. The Penn State net price calculator will give you an estimate of what your net price is, depending on these factors that I just mentioned. So if you Google Penn State net price calculator, it'll come right up, should be the first thing that you can click on, and you can kind of go through this exercise, putting in your factors. Are you on campus or off campus? What campus are you at? And are you in state or out of state? All of those things are going to make a big difference. For example, for an in-state student attending University Park and living on campus, your total cost, including your billable expenses and non-billable expenses, is about $35,000 a year. For an out-of-state student attending University Park and living on campus, it's about $55,000 a year. So it's important to have an idea of, based on your personal situation, how much money do we need to plan for each semester? So to come up with your net cost, it's going to be your billable expenses, which we know will vary. That is your tuition and fees and your room and board, along with your non-billable expenses like your books and supplies, your personal expenses, and transportation costs. From that, you'll subtract your financial aid to come up with your net cost. There are a few different buckets that you can use to pay for your college expenses. Some of these buckets are considered to be a part of your financial aid package, and some are not. Generally speaking, you want to be sure to use financial aid before filling in the gaps with other funding sources. Funding sources can be categorized in three ways. We have saved and earned money, free money, and borrowed money. We'll cover most of the funding sources you see in each bucket during today's presentation, but we will dive a little more into these circled ones because students tend to have the most questions about these. So first, let's just touch on what is financial aid. Financial aid is federal, state, or institutional funding that is managed and dispersed by the university's Office of Student Aid. That is not us. We are the Financial and Life Skills Center. We're here to help you learn how to manage that money that you get. Student Aid's contact information is on the screen here. They have an Instagram and a Twitter and a website that you can go to and find a phone number to call or set up an appointment. Your first step for accessing financial aid money is to fill out the FAFSA. You'll hear me say that a lot today. You have to fill out the FAFSA every single year. It is the free application for federal student aid. Even if you are someone who isn't planning to use any federal aid or any student loans, you should still plan to fill out the FAFSA because many scholarships will use information from the FAFSA for their awarding decisions. So if you're spending time filling out scholarships, but you haven't done the FAFSA, that time filling out scholarships might be a waste. So do not forget to fill out the FAFSA every single year. You can fill it out October 1st for the following academic year. The financial aid process is somewhat cyclical. It starts and ends at studentaid.gov. Before you even enter college, the first thing that you'll do at studentaid.gov is create your FSA ID. The next thing you'll do is you'll fill out your FAFSA. It opens every October 1st for the following academic year. So you could fill out your FAFSA this October 1st for fall 2024. And we actually recommend that you do it that early because funding is first come, first serve. I'll say some funding is first come, first serve. So if you are someone who shows financial need on the FAFSA, fill it out earlier rather than later because you're more likely to get the aid that you need to help you pay for school. Once you filled out the FAFSA and you get the aid, it's your job to go into LionPath and accept that aid. When the semester bill comes out, it will be automatically applied to your bill. Whatever isn't covered by your financial aid, you will have to pay out of pocket or use some sort of student loan to cover it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. After you pay your bill and you're in the thick of the semester, it is your job to maintain satisfactory academic progress to avoid losing your student aid. To maintain satisfactory academic progress, you have to do two important things. The first is that you need to pass and finish at least 67% of the classes that you start. So before you go dropping a class outside of the drop period that maybe you don't like, be sure that's not going to affect your financial aid situation. You got to pass and finish at least 67% of the classes that you start. The other thing you need to do is keep your GPA above a 2.0. And then you're maintaining your satisfactory academic progress. Once October rolls around, you can then again fill out the FAFSA and restart the process. You'll kind of be in this circle until you graduate. Then once you do graduate, you'll be bumped out of this circle to begin repaying your student loans. That process will be done, or the start of that process will be done through studentaid.gov as well. So for your federal student aid, studentaid.gov is where your journey begins and ends. So back to our funding sources here, let's dive into these and let's take a closer look at free money, which is arguably the best kind of money, right? So when it comes to free money, first we have grants. Grants typically come from the government. You are considered for grants when you fill out the FAFSA. Grants are awarded based on financial need. The most common grant awarded is the Pell Grant. For the Pell Grant, the current maximum award per year is $7,365. That will be split up between fall and spring. You can receive the Pell Grant for up to 12 semesters if you show financial need for 12 semesters. Other grants that exist out there are the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant and the Teacher Education Assistance for College and Higher Education Grant. Just remember, you don't actively need to seek grants out. All you have to do for grants is fill out the FAFSA. So that's how you're considered for grants. Next, we have scholarships. These can be based on financial need, merit, or honestly, just writing application letters. Scholarships do typically have deadlines, so you'll need to pay attention to those deadlines when you apply. Generally, you can get institutional scholarships or private scholarships. Some places we recommend to seek out and apply for private scholarships include fastweb.com, collegeboard.org, and the U.S. Department of Labor. Scholarship funding can come from many sources and will kind of vary depending on what you're studying, but it's important to keep in mind that this process can be pretty decentralized and you'll often have to apply in several different places for scholarships. A great place to start is by, surprise, filling out the FAFSA. Completing the FAFSA on the federal government's studentaid.gov website will help you determine eligibility for institutional scholarships, so scholarships through Penn State. After you filled out the FAFSA and received any scholarships that you're automatically considered for through the government or through Penn State, is when the ball kind of falls into your own court and it's kind of on you to do the searching for additional scholarships to get access to that additional free money to pay for college. Each college within the university has its own scholarship page on the Penn State Student Aid website. You can also find scholarships from university departments on that page. So we always encourage students to go to that student aid website and apply for those scholarships from their academic college. That's a great place to apply for scholarships, and also through any university department scholarships that they are eligible for. After they've done that, you can continue looking for external or private scholarships. And I mentioned fastweb.com before. There are a ton of scholarship hubs out there like FastWeb. This is just one of them. It's one of the most extensive places to search for scholarships. Student Aid also promotes, I mentioned this earlier, but Student Aid also promotes the College Board, the U.S. Department of Labor, and Unigo, UNIGO, as good places to search for private scholarships. For anyone who is searching for scholarships, I would encourage you to think about what makes you unique as a student and use that as grounds for your scholarship search. So you can use your ethnicity, you can use what you're studying, your interests, whatever else you can think of that makes you kind of unique as a student. I will say you can even use Google as a scholarship search engine. Like, for example, if you Google women studying business, if that's you, or scholarships for non-traditional students, you will be hit with a ton of options. So think about what makes you unique. Think about how you might use that for grounds as a scholarship search. I will say, if you Google for scholarships, be aware that you should never have to pay to apply for a scholarship. And any scholarship that is asking you for money to fill out the application is most definitely a scam. So don't do that, but do search. When it comes to scholarships, I encourage everyone to be applying regularly. Even if you're someone whose family is helping you pay for school and you don't plan to take any loans out or anything like that, I know for a fact your parents would not be mad if you came home for the semester and said, "Hey, mom," or "Hey, dad, I applied for this scholarship and I got $2,000 for next semester." They would be thrilled. They would love you for that. I encourage every single student to spend an hour or two a week looking for and applying for scholarships. Speaking of scholarships, I have another pool for you that I'm going to launch. I would love to know, have you ever gotten a scholarship or grant to help you pay for college? And if so, where did it come from? Most of us have received a scholarship or grant, which is fantastic. I'll give another few seconds here. We've got about half of us have filled it out. All right, I will share this out to you all. So 67% of us have received scholarships, 33% have not. And when it comes to where our scholarships and grants come from, the majority have actually come from your academic college, but it's a good split. We're seeing quite a few from our communities, which is fantastic. Some Pell Grants, some external scholarships. Very cool. Thank you. Well, hopefully today is helpful in giving you a few extra ideas on where to search for scholarships and find some of that free money for college. Moving on, let's start to explore saved money. Generally, it does make sense to use any free money that you have access to before you tap into your saved money. You or your family might have personal savings earmarked for college expenses that can be used. Maybe you worked in high school or over the summer to save up for college. If so, you might consider stashing those savings in some sort of high yield savings vehicle or even a Roth IRA. Your Roth IRA contributions can be withdrawn at any time for any reason without penalty, and your contributions and earnings can be used without penalty for qualified education expenses. There are also 529 plans, and these are college-specific savings vehicles. A 529 plan, tax-wise, works much like a Roth IRA in that you can invest after-tax funds and allow them to grow tax-deferred, and they can be withdrawn tax-free if they're used to pay for qualified higher education expenses. There are two types of 529 plans. There is the 529 Guaranteed Savings Plan and the 529 Investment Plan. The Guaranteed Savings Plan allows you to save today for tomorrow's education rates. Under this plan, savings grow based on the rising cost of college tuition. So if you save enough for a state school semester today, you'll have enough to cover that semester at that type of school in the future, no matter how much tuition goes up. The 529 investment plan is probably the more common type of 529 plan that most of us have heard of. Under this plan, account holders can choose the investment, usually mutual funds or target date funds that they want to invest in. And how those investments perform will determine how much the account value grows over time. Do remember that this account grows tax deferred and can be withdrawn tax free. A difference of these two plans that I do want to highlight is that under the guaranteed savings plan, only tuition can be covered by the saved amount. And under the investment plan, tuition and room and board and related education costs are eligible. We do have a short video to share on the 529 plan.
The Pennsylvania 529 College and Career Savings Program helps families save and pay for higher education at four-year or community colleges, many vocational or trade schools, and even certain apprenticeship programs. There are two PA 529 plans available, and both provide the same benefits and tax advantages, including a PA.
You might have to click back over to it, Allie. It stopped.
State income tax deduction for contributions. Plus, both plans may be used at schools in Pennsylvania and also out of state. Start today with as little as $10 and contribute anytime. Learn more at pa529.com.
You're muted, Allie.
The Pennsylvania 529 College and Career Savings Program helps families save and pay for higher education at 4 years.
I've been talking. Okay. Anyway, I was saying I saw in the chat Kim had said she paid for tuition, room, and board with the 529 guaranteed savings plan, which is really interesting because based on the research that I was doing from Investopedia said that you could not do that. It only covered tuition. So maybe Kim, you found a loophole. I'm not sure, but that's great. I'm glad you were able to do that. So we talked about free money. We talked a little bit about saved money. Now let's talk a little bit about earned money. First of all, we have federal work study, which offers part-time jobs for students with financial need. So your FAFSA, again, coming back to the FAFSA, will determine if you are eligible for work study. When you're paid through work study, FICA taxes are exempt when students are enrolled in 6 or more credit hours or working on campus. So this is a nice way to maybe save a little bit on taxes as well and have a little bit more of your paycheck actually hit your bank account. Getting a job on or off campus is also a great way to earn money for your college expenses. Budgeting the money that you earn is equally as important. So if you're someone who does have an on or off campus job and you might need a lesson on budgeting or an introduction to some budgeting tools, we definitely encourage you to schedule a one-on-one financial coaching appointment. We work with a ton of students to help them build their first budget, to manage the money that they're bringing in and help pay for some of those college expenses. Teaching, graduate, and research assistantships also offer money for college expenses, but eligibility varies for those. So if that's something you're interested in, thinking about, especially you graduate students, talk to your academic college. All right, moving on to borrowed money. It seemed like this was the thing that we seemed to be most nervous and concerned about in the future was incurring student debt. So generally, it makes the most sense to utilize your free money, move on to your saved money and earned money, and then use borrowed money to fill the gaps. Use as much free money as you can before borrowing. And like I said earlier, I encourage every single student to set aside an hour or two per semester to focus on searching for and applying for scholarships. If you do need to take out student loans, always start with your federal loans. These are government issued loans. They generally have lower interest rates. They don't require a credit check of any kind to obtain. And they're also eligible for loan forgiveness and income-driven repayment. Filling out the FAFSA each year gives you access to federal student loans. When it comes to your federal student loans, there are subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Subsidized loans are offered based on financial need. The difference here between your subsidized and unsubsidized is that subsidized federal loans don't accrue interest while you're enrolled in school. You do have to be enrolled at least half-time. So if you borrow $5,000 your freshman year, you'll still owe that same $5,000 when you graduate, if it is a subsidized loan. On the other hand, unsubsidized loans do accrue interest while you're in school. So if you, same scenario, borrow a $5,000 unsubsidized loan freshman year, by the time you graduate, if you haven't stayed on top of paying the interest on that loan, you will have more. You'll owe more when you graduate. So it's important for you to know, as a student who's borrowing federal student loans, which types of loans you are offered and which types of loans you have. There are some limitations on how much you can borrow per year in the form of your federal student loans. For the first year, the federal annual loan limit, so for freshman year, it's $5,500. The second year, it's $6,500. And the third year and beyond, it's $7,500. So that amount that you're offered will generally be split between your fall semester and your spring semester. And we talked earlier about what is the cost of going to Penn State. And I mentioned that for an in-state student here at University Park living on campus, it's about $35,000 a year. And for an out-of-state student, it's about $55,000 a year. So thinking about the fact that through the federal system, you can only borrow somewhere between $5,500 and $7,500 a year, you might need some extra money, right? So if you do max out your federal loan for the year and you still have money that can't be covered by free, earned, or saved money, you may need to look into some private loans, but only after you've maxed out your federal loans. Private student loans are issued by a private lender like a bank. They generally do have higher interest rates, and to apply, they require a credit check. Oftentimes, students will need to have co-signers to apply for private student loans. There is no option for subsidized private student loans, so it's important to know if you take out private loans that it's going to be accruing interest on the back end. So stay on top of that. If you are someone who has a job when you're a student and you also have private student loans, you might start making interest payments to those loans so they're not growing as astronomically on the back end. Private student loans typically do not offer any sort of loan forgiveness or income-driven repayment plans either, like federal loans do. So I can't stress this enough. Start with your federal loans. I talk to a lot of students in one-on-one appointments, and sometimes it seems like there is some confusion on where to start. So just always fill out the FAFSA, start with your federal student loans. If you forget to fill out the FAFSA, you won't be offered your federal student loans. Before we move on from loans, I'll also highlight that you don't have to take your entire student loan that you're offered. And that's true whether it's a federal student loan or a private student loan. So, if it's freshman year and you get offered $5,500 and maybe you only need $3,000 to cover your bill, you can take just that $3,000. And if you have the option of taking subsidized versus unsubsidized loans, you might want to start with your subsidized loans, knowing that when you're in college, those won't be accruing interest as long as you are enrolled at least half-time. So you can view your award package in LionPath in your financial aid award summary. And I would encourage everyone every single semester to be looking at this to get an idea of what this looks like, where your money is coming from to pay for college. So if you check this out here at the top, you'll have your estimated billable expenses. So here you've got your tuition and fees and your room and board. And then here, where the magnifying glass is, you'll have all of your student aid. So you'll see any grants and scholarships that you're receiving, and you'll also be able to see which semester those are applying to. Here is where you'll also see your subsidized and unsubsidized loans. I always encourage students to check this out to really get an idea of, hey, what do I have out there that's subsidized versus unsubsidized? Because oftentimes students don't really know. If you have a total at the bottom, so we see our estimated billable expenses, we subtract the financial aid, and if you have a positive total at the bottom of your financial aid summary snapshot and line path, this is an estimate of what you can expect to pay out of pocket or with a private or Parent Plus loan. Your financial aid summary, like we just saw on the last slide, will show a breakdown of all the things you're using to pay grants, scholarships, and loans. And within your loans, it's important to know your interest rates. So this year, the undergraduate subsidized and unsubsidized federal student loans are 5.5%. These are fixed interest rates, so that will never change unless you change something about your loan, like consolidate it or refinance it. Otherwise, these are fixed. Graduate student loans are also unsubsidized. The rate for this year is 7.05%. Parent Plus loans, we haven't talked about this yet. So Parent Plus loans are federal student loans. These are loans that can be borrowed by the student's biological or adoptive parents to help cover the semester or the year. For Parent Plus loans, you do have to show credit worthiness. It doesn't require as extensive of a credit check as the private student loans typically. The other important thing to know about Parent Plus loans is that there's no annual limit like there is for the subsidized and unsubsidized loans. The annual limit is just the cost of attendance minus any financial aid. With the Parent Plus loan, it is a loan that is in the parent's name. So legally, when parents take out Parent Plus loans, legally it's their obligation to repay those loans back. However, from working with students over the years, I've realized that a lot of parents will take out this loan to help their students with the expectation that their student is going to help pay it back. So if you're a student and you know that your parent is taking a Parent Plus loan to pay for your education, here is just a quick reminder to have a conversation with them about repayment expectations. Do they expect you to help pay it back? Along with annual loan limits for federal student loans, it's important to know that there are also aggregate or lifetime limits. So this is the max that you can borrow over the entire course of your college career. For dependent undergraduate students, so the majority of students are dependent. This is when your parent claims you as a dependent on their taxes. The max amount that you can borrow over your entire undergraduate college career is $31,000. The maximum amount of that can be a subsidized loan is $23,000. For independent undergraduate students, that maximum increases quite a bit. It's $57,500, and again, only 23 of that can be subsidized. Like I mentioned earlier, Parent Plus loans don't really have a lifetime limit, but they do have an annual limit of being only up to the cost of attendance. So that's going to vary by student and by situation. For graduate and professional students, the aggregate lifetime limit is $138,500 between subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Just like Parent Plus loans, the Graduate Plus loans don't have an aggregate limit. It's going to be based on the cost of attendance. For medical graduate students, the amount is the same as graduate and professional students. It's $138,500. Medical students are able to petition to their financial aid office and ask for a higher limit if needed. So we talked a lot about spending money on college. Let's talk a bit about how we might save on our education costs a bit. For those of you who are using private loans or Parent Plus loans to fund your education, I would encourage you to pay extra attention here. Every amount that you can save is an amount that you don't have to borrow in the form of a private loan or a Parent Plus loan. And I just want to start by saying the most important thing that you can do is graduate, because if you don't graduate and get that degree, you'll have student debt and nothing to show for it. So that's probably like the worst case scenario. So graduating is a great thing. Graduating on time will actually help you minimize costs. So graduating in 4 years is important. Or maybe you take a few extra classes here and there to graduate a semester or even a year early. For you out-of-state students, this will save you a ton of money. So for out-of-state students, if you graduated even a semester early, that would save you $28,000. That's insane. So this might look like planning your coursework carefully with your academic advisor and taking more than 12 credits per semester where possible. Did you know it costs the same to take 12 credits or 15 or 16 credits per semester? There is no additional charge to do that. So if you can swing it academically, that could be a great way to save money. You might also take some summer courses if possible. Typically, these tend to be a little bit cheaper because they are billed by credit. So a great way to save on your education is to make an academic plan along with your financial plan. You want to make sure that you're able to get all your classes in when they're offered, and your academic advisor can help you do this. The very last thing we'll talk about as we're wrapping up here is putting this all together to create your college financial plan. You'll want to consider all financing sources that you'll use to pay, whether that's grants, scholarships, saved and earned money, or federal and private loans, maybe a mix of all of those things. I would encourage you to make an Excel spreadsheet with all of this information. And if your family is involved in helping you manage paying for college, I would definitely encourage that you do it together. This is something we can help you with at the center as well. So an Excel sheet is a great way to organize all of this, update it per semester, keep your information organized, and again, work with your family to do this. It's also very important that you begin to forecast the total student debt that you'll graduate with. So you'll consider all the sources, federal and private loans, Parent Plus loans, if your parents are taking those out for you and they expect you to help them with that. For your federal loans, you can check out studentaid.gov to get an idea of repayment obligations and what that monthly payment might look like when you graduate. For private loans, there's no cut and dry website that you can go to, but it's the same idea. Oftentimes with private loans, you'll actually have to sign up for a repayment plan before you take the loan out. So most of you that have private loans might already have an idea of what that specific monthly payment's going to look like after graduation. I would encourage everyone to begin to figure this out now. The worst thing you can do is borrow and borrow and borrow and ignore it all until you graduate. I meet with a lot of students and a lot of graduating seniors, and it's always a really tough conversation when students have just kind of ignored their student loans all the way up until graduation. And, we sit down to figure it out together, and they're hit with, did you realize you're going to have a $1,200 monthly payment between your federal loans and your private loans after graduation? A lot of times they're just not prepared to hear that because they've kind of put it on the back burner, out of sight, out of mind until graduation. So the most important thing you can do is get educated on the loans that you have out there, where they're from, and what the repayment expectations are for those. Again, for federal loans, go to studentaid.gov. For private loans, there is no website, but you should hopefully have an idea of who you borrowed from and go to that website. Another important step here is to think about your career goals. What is the starting salary in the field that you plan to enter? How does that starting salary measure up against your projected loan payments? You can begin to do this research and get an idea of what that looks like on sites like salary.com and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. If you start to figure some of these things out and it's looking like your monthly payments are going to be way high for your starting salary, you might want to consider some of those cost saving strategies that I mentioned on the last slide. Maybe you're starting to stack some of your classes if you can swing it to maybe graduate a semester early. Maybe you're starting to take some summer classes, or you're really upping your scholarships game, applying for scholarships. If you plan to work in public service, you might be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. This is for your federal loans only. That's a very important thing to remember. Private loans do not qualify for any type of forgiveness. And just remember, we are here to help. If you need some assistance creating your college financial plan, I definitely encourage you to schedule a one-on-one coaching session through Starfish. So that is all we have today. It looks like we have about 10 minutes for some questions. I hope this webinar was helpful. I hope that it helped you think about paying for college holistically and think about your overall financial plan.